Ethan hadn't planned on getting a new roommate so soon after his breakup. He just needed a place where the walls didn't still echo with another man's laughter. The Chicago apartment was small, but it was clean, affordable, and came with a roommate who seemed too good to be true. Ryan Carter, tall, athletic, confident, opened the door that first day with a grin and said, "You must be Ethan. Welcome home, man." His voice had that effortless warmth that could make anyone feel seen. Ethan smiled, tried not to stare too long at the way Ryan's gray t-shirt clung to his shoulders, and muttered a quiet thanks as he carried in his boxes. He told himself this was just a new chapter, new city, new focus, no more relationships. Over the next few days, they settled into an easy rhythm. Ryan worked long hours at a nearby gym, while Ethan, a freelance designer, stayed home sketching logos and editing layouts. When Ryan came back, the apartment filled with noise, music, laughter, and the sound of clattering dishes as he cooked something ridiculously high in protein. He'd always call out, "You eaten yet?" before tossing another portion on Ethan's plate. They watched old sitcoms together, argued about which Marvel movie was best, and gradually, the air between them started to feel heavy in ways Ethan didn't want to name. Ryan was the kind of guy who didn't seem aware of his effect on people. He'd wander around shirtless, towel slung over his shoulder, talking about life like it was no big deal. He'd sit too close on the couch when they watched TV, or lean over Ethan's laptop screen, his breath brushing Ethan's cheek. It was harmless, Ethan told himself. Ryan was straight. Completely, totally straight. And yet, something in the way he looked at Ethan sometimes, lingering, curious, made Ethan's chest tighten. One Friday night, Ryan invited some friends over for drinks. The apartment buzzed with music and laughter, beer bottles scattered across the counter. Ethan mostly stayed quiet, half listening as Ryan told stories about his wild college days and a girl named Lena he almost married. When the last guest finally left, Ryan flopped onto the couch, half drunk and laughing, saying, "Man, I needed that." Ethan smiled weakly, cleaned up a bit, and went to bed. It was after midnight when he woke again. The sound of rain tapping against the window mixed with the soft hum of the refrigerator. Ethan got up to grab some water, still half asleep. As he stepped into the living room, he froze. Ryan was sprawled out on the couch, blanket twisted around his legs, chest bare and everything else, well, out in the open. The soft light from the kitchen lamp caught the lines of his body, the slow rise and fall of his breathing. Ethan's throat went dry. He knew he should look away, should just turn around and walk back to his room, but his feet wouldn't move. It wasn't about lust, at least not entirely. It was about the strange vulnerability of the moment, seeing someone usually so confident, now unguarded and asleep. Ethan's heart pounded. He felt guilty, ashamed even, but also drawn. For a second, he wondered what Ryan would say if he woke up right now and saw him standing there, staring like some kind of creep. Finally, Ethan shook himself out of it and reached for the throw blanket on the armchair. He stepped closer and gently draped it over Ryan's hips, careful not to wake him. The blanket brushed Ryan's skin, and he stirred, mumbling something Ethan couldn't make out. Then, clear as a whisper, Ryan said his name. Ethan. Ethan froze. His heart stopped for a beat. He waited, holding his breath, but Ryan didn't move again. Maybe he'd imagined it. Maybe Ryan was just dreaming about something else, someone else, and his name just slipped out by accident. But something about the way Ryan said it, the soft edge of it, made Ethan's stomach twist. He stood there for another moment, listening to the rain outside, feeling the heat in his face. He backed away quietly, retreating to his room and closing the door behind him. Lying awake in the dark, he replayed it over and over in his mind. The way Ryan had looked asleep, peaceful, vulnerable. The sound of his own name coming from Ryan's lips. "Don't overthink it," he whispered to himself. "He's straight. He doesn't even see you that way." But deep down, Ethan knew something had shifted. That tiny, careless moment had cracked open a door he'd been trying so hard to keep shut. He wanted to believe it meant nothing, that by morning everything would go back to normal. Yet even as sleep finally crept in, his heart was still racing. In the stillness, his thoughts echoed louder than the rain. Did he really say my name? Or was I just hearing what I wanted to hear? The next morning, Ethan tried to pretend nothing had happened. He poured himself coffee, scrolling through his phone, avoiding the couch completely. Ryan came out of his room looking half asleep, rubbing his neck, hair a mess. "Morning," he said with that easy smile, heading straight for the fridge. Ethan forced a nod, mumbling a quiet morning, before sipping his coffee too fast and nearly burning his tongue. Ryan seemed completely normal. He hummed while cooking eggs, asked if Ethan wanted some, and talked about his gym clients. There wasn't even a flicker of recognition or embarrassment in his tone. Ethan couldn't tell if Ryan didn't remember anything from last night, or if he was pretending not to. Either way, it left Ethan more confused than before. By noon, Ethan's phone buzzed. It was a video call from his best friend, Noah. "You look tense," Noah said immediately. "Don't tell me the new roommate's driving you crazy already." Ethan hesitated, then shrugged. "He's fine, just too friendly," Noah smirked. "Uh-huh. That's what you said about Dylan, remember? The straight guy who flirted with you for 6 months before ghosting." Ethan groaned. "It's not like that." But even as he said it, he wasn't sure he believed himself. The rest of the day went by quietly. Ryan left for work, and Ethan tried to lose himself in design projects. But every time he looked up, he saw that image in his head, Ryan asleep, murmuring his name. It was ridiculous, he told himself. A dream, maybe. Nothing more. Still, he couldn't focus. He kept glancing toward the couch, as if it might somehow give him answers. When Ryan came home that evening, it was pouring rain. His hair was soaked, his shirt clinging to his chest. "Forgot my umbrella," he said, laughing as he kicked off his shoes. Ethan grabbed him a towel without thinking, and when their hands brushed, a jolt ran through him. Ryan looked at him for a moment, something unreadable flickering in his eyes. Then he smiled, soft and tired. "Thanks, man. You always got my back." They spent the next hour eating takeout and watching an old action movie. The apartment glowed warm against the storm outside. At some point, Ryan sighed. "You ever think about how weird relationships are?" Ethan glanced at him. "All the time." Ryan stared at the TV but didn't really seem to be watching. "Lena used to say I didn't know what I wanted. She might have been right." Ethan's heart skipped. "You talked to her lately?" Ryan shook his head. "No, she's with someone else now." He laughed softly, but it didn't reach his eyes. There was a silence that felt too heavy. Ethan wanted to say something comforting, but his throat felt dry. He just nodded. Ryan turned to him suddenly, eyes more open than Ethan had ever seen them. "You ever feel like you keep doing the wrong things just to feel something?" Ethan's pulse quickened. "Sometimes," he admitted quietly. Ryan smiled faintly, looking down at his hands. "Yeah, me too." Hours passed. They talked about everything, music, dreams, childhood stories. Ryan opened up about how hard it was to let people in, how everyone assumed he was this confident, happy guy when most nights he felt lost. Ethan listened, feeling something inside him crack a little more. He wasn't supposed to care this much. He wasn't supposed to fall. At some point, Ryan grabbed another beer, his cheeks flushed. The light from the lamp painted his face in warm gold. "You're a good listener, you know that?" he said softly. "Makes it easy to talk to you." Ethan smiled weakly. "Guess it's one of my few talents." Ryan laughed. "Nah, you've got more than that." His gaze lingered for a beat too long. The rain outside turned into a steady rhythm, filling the silence. Ryan leaned back on the couch, eyes half-lidded. "You ever miss having someone?" he asked. Ethan hesitated. "Yeah, more than I admit." Ryan nodded slowly, his expression unreadable. Then quieter. "Sometimes I think that's why I screw up. I just want to be seen." Ethan swallowed hard. The words hung in the air like static. He could feel the pull between them, the kind that didn't need to be named. Ryan turned his head slightly, meeting Ethan's eyes. For a long second, neither of them moved. The world outside disappeared, just the sound of rain and two people who shouldn't want what they wanted. Then Ryan blinked, pulling away, running a hand through his hair. "Sorry," he muttered, voice rough. "Guess I'm drunker than I thought." He stood, stretching. "Night, man." He turned toward his room, then stopped in the doorway. Without looking back, he said quietly, "Hey, Ethan. That night, you know, the one I was passed out on the couch. I wasn't dreaming." Ethan's breath caught. Before he could say anything, Ryan disappeared into his room, leaving only the sound of the storm and Ethan's racing heartbeat. He sat there frozen, replaying those words again and again. Not dreaming. What did that mean? He wanted to ask, to know, but a part of him was terrified of the answer. Outside, thunder rolled softly through the night. Inside, Ethan sat alone, heart unsteady, realizing that something dangerous had already begun, and there was no going back. The days that followed were quiet in all the wrong ways. Ryan barely spoke to Ethan except for polite hellos and quick questions about the mail or bills. The easy laughter that used to fill the apartment was gone, replaced by long stretches of silence and the hum of the refrigerator. Ethan tried to act normal, but every word felt forced, every moment heavy with what hadn't been said. He wanted to ask what Ryan meant that night, what "I wasn't dreaming" was supposed to mean, but the words died in his throat every time. One afternoon, Ethan was working on his laptop when Ryan's phone started buzzing on the coffee table. He wasn't trying to snoop, but the name flashing on the screen caught his eye. Lena Torres. The call ended, then started again, the name glowing in the dim light. Ryan came out of his room seconds later, grabbed the phone, and walked onto the balcony. His voice carried faintly through the glass door, sharp, tired, emotional. "You can't just call me whenever you feel guilty, Lena." "No, I'm not with anyone." "I told you it's complicated." Ethan's chest tightened. He wasn't sure why hearing that hurt so much. Maybe because it reminded him that despite everything, Ryan's world didn't belong to him, and probably never would. When Ryan came back inside, he avoided eye contact. "Old habits die hard," he said quietly, trying to laugh it off. But Ethan could see something breaking beneath that practiced smile. That night, Ryan came home late, smelling like whiskey and rain. His shirt was damp, his eyes glassy. He dropped his keys on the counter and sank into the couch. "She wants to get back together," he muttered. "Lena, after all this time." Ethan sat across from him, unsure whether to comfort him or stay silent. Ryan's voice cracked. "I should be happy, right? That's what I wanted." He looked up, meeting Ethan's eyes. "But I don't know what I want anymore." The air felt heavy, suffocating. Ethan swallowed, choosing his words carefully. "Maybe you just don't want to hurt anyone again." Ryan gave a humorless laugh. "Too late for that." His gaze softened. "I hurt you too, didn't I?" Ethan's mouth went dry. "Ryan!" But Ryan kept talking, words tumbling out like he'd been holding them in for weeks. "You were just supposed to be my roommate, my friend. But every time I looked at you, I couldn't stop wondering, what if?" He rubbed his hands over his face, exhaling shakily. "I kept telling myself it was nothing. Just curiosity. But then that night happened, and I realized it wasn't just that. It scared the hell out of me." Ethan's heart was pounding so loud he could barely hear. "Ryan, you don't have to explain." "I do," Ryan interrupted. "Because it's not fair to you. You didn't ask for this. I messed up. I let something start that I don't know how to finish." The confession hung between them like smoke. Ethan stood, pacing a few steps before turning back. "You think this is easy for me? You're the one who said my name that night. You made me believe it meant something." His voice cracked on the last word. Ryan's eyes shimmered with guilt. "It did, I just can't be who you need me to be." He stood, closing the distance between them. For a moment, they were inches apart, close enough that Ethan could feel his breath, smell the faint trace of whiskey and rain on his skin. Ryan reached out like he might touch his arm, then stopped himself. "You're the only person who's made me feel something real in a long time." Ethan blinked hard, forcing back the tears burning behind his eyes. "Then why does it feel like I'm the one paying for it?" Ryan didn't answer. He just stepped back, voice low and broken. "Because you deserve more than someone who doesn't know who he is." Then he turned away and disappeared into his room, the door clicking shut like a final period on a sentence that should never have been written. Ethan didn't see him much after that. Ryan started leaving early, coming home late, avoiding the shared spaces. A few weeks later, a text arrived while Ethan was cooking dinner. "Moving out next weekend." "Thanks for everything, man." Just like that, it was over. No goodbyes, no long talk, just a quiet exit. When Ethan came home from the grocery store that Sunday, Ryan's room was empty. Only the faint smell of his cologne lingered, haunting the space like a memory. Months passed. Life resumed its dull rhythm. Ethan worked, saw friends, tried dating again. But sometimes, late at night, he'd catch himself looking at the couch, the one where Ryan had once fallen asleep, where everything had started. That image never really left him. One evening, as he was shutting down his laptop, his phone buzzed with a new message from an unknown number. He almost ignored it, but curiosity won. The message was short. I still dream about that night. No name, but he didn't need one. He just stared at the screen, the words burning into him like an echo from another life. He didn't reply. He just sat there, feeling that familiar ache rise in his chest. Some stories, he realized, don't end with closure. Some just fade, leaving behind quiet ghosts that visit in the dark. He looked toward the window, watching the city lights flicker against the glass, and whispered to no one. Maybe he was never mine to lose. But a part of me will always be his secret. The rain began again outside, soft, steady, and endless, just like the memory he couldn't forget.